Hey.
What's up?
Welcome. I am Dr. Lynne.
And I'm Justin.
And you know that we are your hosts for Working It Out Across Generations. It's a show where we talk about all things conflict. And it's really great because we talk about it generationally too, because obviously we're from different generations, even though we're mother and son. So we have a different take on some things, even the things that we agree on. So excited that you decided to join us today.
Absolutely. Yeah. Today we've got a very interesting topic, one that I'm excited to get into and to get thoughts around from everyone on this, because I think humor is one of the best things that we have on this planet to connect, to be able to release ourselves from the certain stressors that come with certain experiences, right? They become present but not present in the same light, right? When you get to joke about certain things after time goes on, right? But however, too much of anything can be unhealthy. We know that. So today's topic is, are these just jokes, right? And I think this is very important because I love humor. I'm very big on humor. I'm very big on giving people a laugh. And the reality is that in a world that we live in, where we can guarantee that problems are going to erupt, conflict is going to erupt, and tough times will come, it's always nice to give that energy back out into the world, guaranteeing that someone is going to respond well to it, right? However, as I said previously, lines can be crossed, right? Too many times we often see that jokes are okay up until a certain moment, and then an energy starts to shift, right? And that can lead to conflict, verbally, physically, we've seen, and even emotionally, with the way in which people interpret in which that conflict arose from this humor that's out there. And so the reality is, also being, this is for the guys out there, right? Guys, we very much are about, getting on each other. Like, that's like one of the ways that we bond. Like, it's one of the ways that we show as a sign of we've reached a certain level of closeness in our relationship. It's not just, guys aren't just joking around with everyone and stuff like that, right? So it is a signal, right, for certain things that prove that certain comfort has been achieved. However, and I think this is for everyone, any walk of life, animals, things of that nature, right? That line and that threat for violence is very thin. And so the reality is, we don't know where people are and how things are landing unless they come forth with, okay, hey, this is my boundary. This is where we need to pull back, right? And oftentimes people don't get that opportunity, or they're not given the space to do so, right? So I think this episode is really important, just in, we're going to talk about some of the ways that you can set those boundaries for yourself, right? So that you can live your full life, you can enjoy a good laugh, you can release yourself of some of the things that you might be internally hanging on to, right? And how to possibly deal with, any fallout that could possibly come from all of that.
Yeah, I love this topic. I know a little something about it. If you go to my website, lynnemoreinhurdle.com, and check out 3 interesting things about me. Well, one of those things is that I competed for a spot in the national broadcast of Nick at Night's Funniest Mom in America contest. The very, 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 very first funniest mom in America contest. I don't mind dating myself, but and let me tell you, first of all, before I even entered that, I was taking a stand-up comedy class, and much respect, because I'm gonna tell you, it can take weeks, if not months, to write a 5-minute routine, like a really good solid one. But I do love humor. But I like to laugh when everybody gets to laugh at the joke. I think that there are definitely things that cross the line, and we may not all agree about it. That's the thing about humor that's so incredible, is that when we all laugh together, no better feeling. When some of us laugh and others don't, yeah, then that's where conflict can definitely come in. And when the butt of the joke is on someone else,
Mhm.
like there's so many things. Like we said in the description, right? There's even humor that's cultural. And I don't know every culture, but I can tell you that I grew up with playing the dozens, and that in the African American culture, it goes all the way to mama jokes. And at the same time, in our culture, we have this thing, you don't talk about my mother, right? So,
Right.
right there, you want to talk about you're already crossing the line and playing the dozens, but even in the dozens where we know mama jokes are allowed, you could still cross the line.
Absolutely.
and that
Yeah.
was just a little too much or too rough. So it's very interesting. And then I know in Latin cultures, people have a lot of my friends have nicknames, right? That they grew up with. They were called by their family, and they're usually not very flattering, but everybody knows. Everybody in the culture knows, and then that's what they call you, right? And if you're outside the culture, it could look like, "Wow, what are you doing?" But I don't mess with people's cultures. They do what they do. I'm always interested, but humor does definitely transcend. Did we learn nothing from Will Smith and Chris Rock? Yet we ain't talking about that one, but did we learn nothing from it? But
that was ridiculous. Yeah, that was just. We're not getting into that, but that was
no,
ridiculous.
We're not
Oh
getting
my
into
gosh.
that. But I will tell you though, something that brought this up for me was the Super Bowl. Here in the United States, we had Super Bowl Sunday, and Super Bowl Sunday is always infamous for the commercials, right? Infamous for the commercials, and they try to put out their best one. So for me, there was the one with J Lo and Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. To me, it was a real controversial one. I see that it's a big hit, but for me, it landed first controversially because I'm like, wait a minute. Are we still doing this dumb stuff where white people try to imitate black people, what they think is black people are cool? And yes, I know he was trying to get in the video and his wife. I mean, there was so many things happening for me, but on the first one, I was just like, I'm insulted. I'm offended. Why are we still doing this where white boys are trying to pretend that they down and cool? Then I watched a couple more times and I thought about all the different nuances. Like, I'm sure, look, this is an intercultural marriage, right? Different cultures between the two of them. They have to have this conversation. They have to, and then the fact that they had I don't know who was in the car with him at first saying this is a bad idea, and then Matt Damon apologizing all over himself to J Lo, like, I tried to talk about this is a bad idea, and then Matt Damon, like his ride or die statement, like, bro, I promised you I would do anything. That this is the anything. Like, you have hit the line, right? So it was interesting for me. I don't know how many people it landed with, right or wrong, but the very fact that at first it landed offensive to me made it interesting to me, and a really good example of humor and when it's cool, when it's not, and how can we even all agree on it. I think that's the hard part.
Yeah, because I didn't take it that way. At all. Didn't take it that way. Still didn't take it that way. Didn't go to sleep taking it that way. But I can understand how, for I guess, the older generation who's just seen more who's seen more of that line crossed.
Yes.
I can understand how for you it could be tiring if it's like now that's still like the way we're trying to be funny. I can see that. But other than that,
Thank you.
I mean, the only way I can do this show is if I try to, but even then, I personally thought, if anything, because I appreciate your perspective, and I think the only reason that I didn't take it that way is because it was very light compared to what else is out there. So for me, it was just kind of like, oh, this is cute. This is nice. This is like we're like more about a coffee rather than like him actually even trying to get like dance moves down. Like it was just something like that. That was cute, I guess, for me. But
Well,
I don't know.
like I said, I saw it over time. I saw expanded the lens. I appreciate your point of view too, and I appreciate that you see where I'm coming from. Like, this has been decades of having this same kind of joke, right? Be funny, and it's not funny in real life. Is really not funny. So to see it at the commercial level, interesting. Yes, I can laugh at it, and I think I can laugh at it because, like I said, they put in the parts that made it okay for me. Is that you're making fun of the making fun of what you're making fun of? Like that's pretty cool, right? Even who was it, Joe, right? Fat Joe, who gave him Ben Affleck the look like, really, you really coming like this? Nah, that don't work, right? So yeah, but anyway, that's me on why this was so interesting to me, because as somebody who loves to laugh and make people laugh and be in a room where even in the toughest times we can still laugh, I appreciate humor. Yeah, I definitely appreciate humor. But I will, let me just say this. It's an interesting thing for me to see where we are in this day and time, because things like roasting people, like that's just, I mean, the fact that there's even a word for it that's negative. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's positive. If you're the one who's roasted the person, then it's positive for you. But just it's a negative term, right? Because we know that you're really tearing somebody apart at the expense of a joke. A lot of times, people aren't joking though behind the roast there. They intend to hurt, right? Whereas other times people are, they look, you just made me go there kind of thing, and they're roasting the person. But I grew up in a time where the only roasts besides the ones that came out the oven were like Dean Martin. I don't know if you ever heard.
What? Who?
Dean Martin was a very famous.
No disrespect, bro. I apologize.
Very famous movie star. Yes, way, way, way back in the day. And he was known for getting on people, and he would have official roasts. Like if you got roasted at a Dean Martin roast, you were somebody. You were celeb. I mean, Muhammad Ali. All kinds of folks have been roasted by Dean Martin. So something if y'all Google, you'll never heard of it. Like just never heard of it. I think the commercials are still on now somewhere, right? That you can buy them. You can buy the roast. They're that famous. Like all of these people roasted. So I grew up on that. And that was like a special occasion and a high honor. That's what those were. Where we are now, where people roast people on the regular, social media, out in the schoolyards, on the workplace, because humor knows no bounds. And so people can be roasted anywhere. That to me has taken it to a whole nother level. But then comedians have done that on the regular too. And people have taken their chances showing up at a comedy club where they know a comedian
front row
is going to definitely pick on the audience.
Yep.
Like that's their style, is to pick on the audience. And that, I mean, I know that there are comedians that goes back to, but I think it is certainly much more prevalent nowadays. And it probably, I don't even know how long ago. Like Robin Harris was one of my favorite comics, and he would do that. He would definitely do that. In fact, he was famous for doing that, and people showed up because it was a badge of honor to be in one of his jokes, right? But at the same time, people were sitting in that audience praying that he would not pick on them, because if he did, he would go in till the end. There was nothing left of your dignity. And if you sign up for that, you like that kind of humor, that's on you. If somebody took you and surprised you, I'm telling you, I guarantee you left there thinking they didn't like you. Because why would they put you through that? Yeah, but I didn't grow up in this anybody's fair game era. I really did grow up where humor was, there was always racist jokes. So yeah, that ain't happening, right? Gotta touch on that. Gotta be able to say, no, that's not happening. And people still today think a lot of humor that's racist is funny, and and all kinds of isms, right? Everybody's fair game. It doesn't really matter. And I think that it really does matter. And while everything gets to evolve over time, I feel like now when we're talking about humor, you don't know what the response of that person will be, right? You don't know how it lands. And to comedians, I think you're taking a risk, but that's your job, right? I think humor has always pushed boundaries, and in many ways, it's why we get to talk about pretty much anything these days, right? Because comedians have brought the situations, the subjects into comedy clubs and have made it funny and made it something, a topic for people to talk about. But I feel like I've seen a lot of humor going bad. Let's put it like that. I've seen a lot of humor going badly, and there are definitely things that attribute to humor turning into conflict. Would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I think for my generation, we definitely have just amplified everything that the generations before us have done and talked about and things of that nature, right? So we are, definitely bringing these societal topics and political topics into, these comedy clubs, which is cool, and I think that's a style that I've always been able to get down with, right? But I mean, yeah, as far as like roasting and things of that nature, like that's become, definitely a part of even just like our everyday language. And I don't have a problem with it personally. I just know that the reality is you're gonna catch people at different times within themselves on different days. So you just don't know how things are gonna land, right? So like even if that one joke worked this one day, it doesn't mean that it's gonna work 2 weeks from now, from then, even if you like switched up some of the verbiage to it, right? It's just one of those things where people are just so um we're just so subjective because we're in such a subjective and complex society, right? That you just kind of have to be able to, if you're that joker, be able to handle either response, right? And I think that um we we as a generation like will I don't think it's everyone, but some of us won't do too great when people do say, "All right, this is how I feel. Like this is whatever." It's kind of like, "Ah, come on, like we're just messing around or whatever, right? It's just a joke and da 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 da, and or you're being sensitive and things of that nature, right?" And I think that's where we want to come in and offer ways in which we could possibly alleviate that response, and if not the response of that person who receives that, so that conflict doesn't get any further to where violence ensures, right? And I don't think, or I don't know, but I don't assume that violence has come up more. Like I don't know, I wouldn't know if violence has come up more from specifically humor from my generation to yours,
I,
but I would say that um, certainly that threat of it, right? That line I think has definitely just gotten thinner and thinner to where talking about it or talking around it or that energy shift is way more prevalent than necessarily people coming to blows.
mhm.
Um,
I think that your generation and and millennials, I feel like where it's taken it to is that nothing is off limits, and
yeah,
that I think leads much more to conflict. And we talk about conflict because we talk about relationships, right? So how do you build, strengthen, maintain a good relationship if you're not able to take the cues and pay attention to when your sense of humor, right, is actually causing tension in the relationship? That's really what we're talking about, because people got to figure out where's the humor. I mean, listen, when folks like Eddie Murphy were bringing in more cursing. And hey, he didn't invent it. Trust, I know. But I come from the time when you can purchase everybody's work, right? Red Fox, who I talked about in the previous episode, you had to brown paper bag his album and make sure that your parents didn't catch you with. I mean, this the era I grew up in.
Yeah, those are the dudes like running my generation, which
so
even for me it depends on the day. Like, but absolutely.
So
I feel that.
even when things like cursing came in, there was too much for me. There was too much for me, and so there were certain routines I couldn't listen to or wouldn't listen to. And then I have to be honest, there were certain routines that I say to myself, I should not be laughing, but it's funny, and that. I mean,
yeah, there's a lot more of that in my generation.
Yeah, there's a lot more of that in your generation. But really and truly, we hope that if you enjoy humor, that you don't enjoy it so much at other people's expense, but anything, right, could.
Those are your words.
Line. Well, all right, those are my words.
No, I'm just stating for the those are your words. I'm just. Oh, I don't know. That's your statement.
Yes, that's a me statement.
Not a we. That's a
me statement. Well, what would your statement?
I don't have one right now, but it certainly was not that. So you can stand on that one. I'm gonna stand on building one and coming back to y'all with one if you need it. But
whatever.
Time to change. I don't know. Time to change. Sometimes it'd be funny. Sometimes.
Times have definitely changed. I think it could be funny when the person agrees.
When they know.
Even then, you can go like enough already. I've seen people just harass and go for it, and the person's being good natured. But anyway, let's talk about. Oh my God.
Different time.
Definitely different times on this one.
I couldn't get down with that easy. I'm sorry.
Definitely different times on this one. But let's talk about some of the ways that humor causes conflict.
Yeah. So right here, as we just said, crossing the line, right? And I think when we say this, you brought up the factor that we're talking about of being able to establish what that line is for you, right? And to be able to be vocal about that. That is harder to do, right? That's easier said than done. I will 1000% give that to everyone. Mid roast session, we're just shooting with each other. That is harder to do sometimes, right? Yeah. So I completely understand, right? So I think in other ways you could do it, it's let's maybe like move on, or is that all you got? I don't know. I'm the type where it's like if I'm hearing the same thing over and over, I'm kind of like, all right, well, let me get some new material. Like what else about me you got? I don't know, but any way that you can make it established that in that moment, right here, right now, this one, little iffy about. There's no shame in that. If anything, they'll know going into the next time. Okay, wow, maybe this is something I should at least think about. From there, that's on them, right? But the more it escalates, that's when you really want to put your foot down even more about what that line is and stand on it too.
But I also think it's for the person making the joke. Look, if you know that this is their person's line, if that person has told you before, why are you crossing the line? You really need to investigate your motives here. Is it really to be funny, or is it to make that person feel bad? And I personally do not believe that there is a reason to make someone feel badly public. I just don't. I mean, maybe in a private conversation, something you say, is going to hurt their feelings, but you're not shaming them in public. But you're roasting somebody with the intent of crossing that line, then that's not a relationship you want to save. Yeah, things can be funny. It may be hard in the moment not to cross the line, but that's a choice that you're going to make depending on the relationship.
Cool.
The setting, like that, I started to talk about this, like where you are. A lot of, even social media is public, y'all. Come on now, you know that, right? The setting is critical. If it's between the two of you and you're just having a joke that's one thing. But if you're out and you're trying to make people laugh about something that your friend does that they've already told you they don't want you to share or talk about, then you really do have to look at why are you choosing to tell it. If they got you pinned to the wall and they're joking at your expense, then you may throw it back in a public setting. But I think where you are is crucial. Who's there? Who are these people? What is it going to mean for them to know, right? This particular piece of information that you put in a joke. And also just knowing like who's in the room, period. If you're It's not about relationship, but it's about making the room laugh, right? Is this a good time and a good place for that to happen? Because sometimes humor is inappropriate.
Yeah, I would say definitely just on a smaller scale, even though it's still important, just like, reading the room of if you're at work, right? Like who you're talking to, the types of jokes you're using, right? At school, I know this is something that for me, I absolutely ran with any chance that I could get. I was the class clown. I was messing around. I was making people laugh and stuff. And oftentimes, that's not the time or place or space, even if that teacher's cool. Shout out to the cool ones who never kicked me out. But the ones that, were about their business, really about, trying to get that learning into you, that does disrupt that process, not just for you, for that teacher, but everyone else in the room. And so things like that, for sure, especially in college, we see that all the time too. Like college kids are still messing around, right? And while, again, this is coming from someone who loves humor, uses humor, in every aspect of my life and loves it. I definitely think the environment you're in prompts the degree in which you joke, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for sure, I like that one. And then lastly, just making it personal, right? So this is when you specifically have that intention of trying to dig, of trying to get a reaction, of trying to, um, just put down, right? Things of that nature. And we're all guilty of it. We've been victim to it, but we're all guilty of it at times, right? And so I think the reality is, um, even with certain personal things, there are things that people could say, I'm not too freaked out about that compared to such and such or whatever, right? And so the reality is with anything though, getting into someone else's story, getting into someone else's landings of experience, getting into all that stuff and bringing it out without permission, I think is where people will start to feel okay, like there is a line that was crossed, there's a trust that's been breached, right? Because we personally haven't joked about that or gotten to a place where we could. So, how is it that this is out in a public setting and things of that nature, right? So, I think just when it comes to the personal stuff, definitely be weary of how it could land. But the reality is, especially be weary if that's not the basis of that relationship. If y'all keep it at name calling and things of that nature, keep it there, right? Like stay in your lane, know your lane. And then when you start to experiment with getting deeper and things of that nature, make sure you're checking in with each other to make sure that no one's, crossing a line within potentially crossing lines.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Don't be mean.
So again, I didn't say that. But again, it's like just make sure like it's a meme that someone would see as, haha meme and not like, again, I can't just we're different generations. So I'm not gonna sit here and lie to people. Like, no, like sometimes like that just is a part of the camaraderie. But yes, actively checking in with each other and holding each other accountable is definitely I think the biggest piece of it.
Okay. Don't be mean. Yeah.
Whatever.
I know we're different.
Whatever.
I know we're
Yeah,
different.
I'm not even gonna. Yeah, that's totally cool. Don't be mean.
But if you do cross the line, then there may be some things that you might want to try,
Yep.
right? One is check for clarity. So if you're the person that crossed the line, somebody's drawing the line for you, check that they've heard what you've said, right? That they understand the intention. You want to be clear about that. If you're the one whose line was crossed, check in. Right, because I'm gonna tell you something. Shout out to my gym partners, well, my instructor Gabriel and my classmate Richard. I'm telling you, there are times when I'm in the gym and I hear Gabriel give us instructions and I hear it completely wrong. I mean, really bad. And he's like, I never said that. Like, what? And my classmate's like, he didn't say that. So make sure. Sometimes in the heat of things, something sounds like something else, or you might have blacked out the minute they start calling your name and was saying roasting you with jokes, but check for clarity. Is this what I heard you say before you go in on people, or let them know, like, nah, you really crossed the line right now?
Yeah, I think this is valuable too, just because it's not used often. People don't expect often when people say like, "Hey, a line's been crossed," that you'll actually like want to know where, how, when for future reference, right? So I think that just from a model standpoint, it's important to show that just from a humility standpoint of like, I make mistakes, I understand that. Help me see where I made this mistake, right? And just again from just doing it, from just posing these questions, from just showing that you would even be that person and can be that person and are capable of being that person. I think that's not often shown, so it only will influence people to, if not in that moment, go and just find someone to check for clarity with. They're going to think about times in which they could have or should have in personal experiences, to which that's going to inform how they move in the future. So again, it's all about just model in the sense of, we've modeled so much of how to be different and othering and to shun that, run away from that. Here's one of the ways that we could model the opposite of that, and hopefully have that one day be a part of our society while still maintaining a balance between joking and being mean and not being mean, right? Because it's all in good fun. Yes. Next, read the room. I mean, we kind of
read the room.
I am reading it. I'm reading it and I'm standing on what I'm saying. So anyway, I think the reality is like people are people. They're complex, right? We don't know how things are going to land until, honestly, sometimes like they've landed and we don't even have the opportunity to really know or think about how can I go about reconciliation in this moment, right? And that's not even with violence per se. That could be with, I know, especially in my generation, right? You can assume that no one's anywhere like alone. So if jokes are flying and things about people's character start getting thrown in, right? One of the scenarios in which I could say you could read the room is if this one person's not taking it well, they start looking around, people start flocking, and it's on some like, well, who's right? That's like a scenario where you want to be able to just have that awareness, right? Not that anything could even come of that, right? But again, just to say like, okay, well, I have the awareness to at least know I caught that this is not landing well for this person, right? If they give you that opportunity to clarify, right, and do that, which is again unheard of, but we need more of that, then this is where the first technique comes in golden, right? Because they've given you that opportunity, they're presenting that, they're fine with giving you that opportunity, and at that point they'll be able to calm down whoever is around them and say, you know what, nah, this is cool, like, we had a conversation, it's all straight, we misunderstood each other. No need to make something permanent out of something so subjective.
Yeah, but even good comedians read the room, y'all.
I would say that too. That's more of a day-to-day, person-to-person, social setting, but absolutely, even the best ones read the room.
You gotta read the room. And again, that goes back to your intent. If you're weaponizing humor, that's a whole nother thing. We're not talking about that. We're talking about laughing together in a good-natured way. Even some stuff might be rough, but you've agreed to people being able to use that as a joke, right? Fine. I mean, there's stuff that certainly there's different people that I'll get together with that know some jokes from back in the past, something that I did or said, right? And we all laugh about it. I may not like it too tough, but But I've agreed that, okay, fine, it was funny. I'm cool. I'm not going to get insulted by it. But reading the room may require at all different times that you look and see what's the effect of the person. If you're going in on them, what's the effect on them? And if you genuinely are trying to get laughs, but see that the way you're going about it is hurting someone and you care enough, then you'll stop doing it. Again, if your intent is just to be malicious and mean, then
that's not me, by the way. Like I just laugh at some of the things that those people say. But that is no, it's not me. But that is funny sometimes. That style sometimes is acceptable. But it's not it's just funny sometimes. So I had to make that clear as you keep looking at me with this mean stuff. And I want to make sure this is very clear. I am balanced in this humor over here.
Is when you do really good impersonations. But
yes, I can tell stories. I can impersonate.
It's kind of like the acting out of a particular story. He's the best at it. He's really great. So, it sounds like the people, and he's not trying to do it to like embellish it and make them sound stupid. He's just going into what happened and embodying the person that
right. And even that doesn't land well all the time with certain people on certain days. So read the room. That's definitely important. And I think as that person who's on the receiving end, right, it is important to read the room if that line's crossed, in the sense of it'll indicate and inform your response to when that line's crossed, and just how you go about the expression of, hey, this is landing with me not in a good way. Right. And this is where it comes in with work. This is where it comes in with school, right? I know for me, I had plenty of teachers that I probably should have just like, read the room and been like, oh, okay, I'm really holding stuff up here right now. And I will own that if any of you were to ever come on to stumble upon this show. But that definitely, like, when you just a quick glance will really inform, a quick breath as well in that will really inform how you respond if that's you on the receiving end of that. So
hey, everybody got school stories to tell about humor. Come on now, everybody. Unless you just sat there in silence,
which is whack.
You joked on somebody, and it was probably a teacher. But if not, who knows? But anyway,
teachers were my my prey. Go ahead.
Illustrate boundary. Now this was yours. You put that.
Oh yeah, word. So I think for me, I brought this up because I really thought of a personal time in which I was illustrated a boundary and given that opportunity, like where it was something that clearly this person could have easily, stopped being my friend, could have easily taken some space at least from me, right? In that we were joking from that standpoint. I'll just give some context of we were playing video games together. So anyone out there who knows video games, right? That's just the money place for this kind of talk to come out, but also for that line to get thinner and thinner over time. And so it was one of those scenarios. We're playing the game, we're shooting it, and we start getting personal, start crossing lines, and it got to a point where we didn't even want to talk in that moment of like reconciliation. It was just like, all right, I think we're good for the night, right? So we call it. Next day, I had gotten a text from him, hey, give me a call when you get a chance. I really want to talk about it last night. And so that for me, I'm already like, okay, wow, like that's awesome. I've never really received that from having made a mistake and then gotten the opportunity to be illustrated and walked through. Here's where things went left, right? And people don't have to do that for you, by the way. I'm not saying at all people have to do this for you, that you're entitled to that, which is all the more reason why I wanted to step into that conversation. And so he was very, very honest with me, hey, I understand even with my own mouth, I can get like this, I can cross lines, right? But just because you're my friend, because I care about you and I care about our relationship, and I know that's not your character and our relationship, I wanted to bring this forth to you. And so just like that, starting the conversation off, I was already like, wow. Like even if, and I knew I was wrong. Like I'll just say that, right? But even if, okay, see, that's where I'm just not gonna have that. I knew I was wrong, and when I heard that, like all defenses went down.
Yeah.
Like we're all people, right? We don't like to be called out for our actions, for how we show up in the world, and how that could possibly be landing for people in a way that's not that you expected.
Right. Even
People,
if it's funny.
right? People to experience you, right? Mm-hmm. And so, but that just let down all defenses, and he walked me through it. Here's where it started. Right. Here's where I was. Here's where you were, or you could clear that up for me. And I'm like, okay, cool. This is where we were. Here's where we got to. This is where it started to get testy. Right. I'm like, absolutely, I can see that because my own emotions started to. And here's where it started to go left, to which I felt this, you felt this, because I had responded. And I'm telling you, he walked me through it.
That's a great illustration, y'all.
From a, as I said, from what he said as well, I care about our friendship. Right. I know that's not your character. And I know it takes two to tango, as you'll always hear me say here. Right. So even in the things sometimes that we don't do, the things that we don't say, that is a part of the tango of how we get to our outcomes. And so the reality is, as I said, he didn't have to do that. But I took those notes. I stand on those notes to this day. We have not had any sort of outcomes in that realm, from that topic, from that place, from those lines, right? We've had, of course, those other times where we're gaming and we're just like, come on, bro, I can't do this with you, right? Right. But other than that, I made sure for myself that I was not going to cross that line again, because he gave me the opportunity to see personally, like, come take a look into how this landed for me. And again, he didn't have to do that. No one is entitled to that. But if you have someone that's willing to do that, even in the deepest, darkest of topics of conversation, especially then, take your time. But be open. Just be open to possibly, the fact that, wow, maybe this person does just want me to understand, so that if not for our relationship, for their future relationships, they don't make that same mistake.
I think that's a good one. And I know for you, that's a great way to
shout out my dog. Yeah, shout out my dog. This is my guy who's still here today. This was like a year ago that this happened. So it's a year of actively making sure that, that line never gets crossed on both sides. And we both done a great job. So
good. All right. You heard it here first.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then just a quick little bonus. We don't have it up as a banner for you, but whatever it is that you feel, if you feel a line was crossed, if you feel open to, oh, there we go. Nice. If you feel a line was crossed, if you feel open to having a conversation, illustrating that boundary, or not, stand on it. I think it's very easy to feel the effects of after, post something going on, right? And get wrapped up in how uncomfortable that is or can feel. And so sometimes we'll let in that person who crossed the line back into our lives, maybe too early, or maybe not at all, right? Or whatever it is, right? But whatever it is, I think that it's important just to stand on our boundaries, on our lines, on our communication styles, on our humor styles, and what that is, and stand on that first. We're a student first. We got to learn these things. We're not perfect, right? But these are things that we can and should take into consideration. And I think that, if we're trying to build a world that is just a little better than where we are now, I think that requires us being able to say, not here, or not at this time, right? Or if we do invite this back into our lives, this conversation, this person, whatever it is, making sure that those boundaries do not get crossed for future reference.
Yeah, I think that's good. And that we don't have to use violence to stand on
to do it,
right?
Yeah, right.
We actually can.
No one's got to die
right.
to know they made a mistake.
No one's career has to die.
Correct.
Nothing like that. Right? No one's friendship. You really, if you can learn how to have these conversations, that's what conflict is all about, is for us to learn how to grow. It's for us to learn about where our own boundaries are and how to use skills to speak up about these things, because humor is supposed to be for everybody's fun, and it can be a great way. We've got all this stress and anxiety in the world. It's a great way to release some of that in a way that's healthy and builds relationships. So use humor wisely, because it is a great tool. It really, what feels better than everybody, laughing together, sincerely laughing together.
If one or two aren't, there's times where that's okay, and that's cool, as long as we come back and give them, like something that they can like join in after. But I think in those moments sometimes it's okay. But again, use it wisely. Read the room. Use our techniques. But yeah, I think that's okay sometimes. I just do. I'm the younger sibling, so I've had to be that person. So shout out my younger siblings who get it. Sometimes you gotta be, just sitting there taking it for, a few seconds. Because the reality is
the sibling stuff. Sometimes siblings do come for each other. So, and then siblings do know sibling secrets.
Yes.
Some of that stuff does get in the realm of humor,
and I never want to minimize what people are feeling out there, right? Considering this is, as I said, as we will always say, a very complex but also negative, or just a lot of negative stuff out there that makes up society and what we know it has today. So again, as I said, I never want to minimize what people are going through. I just will say that there are things that one day you can't laugh about in the future.
Yeah. I mean, 2 weeks after my mom died, I did a seminar with the famous Les Brown, motivational speaker extraordinaire, king, all of that stuff. 2 weeks after my mom died. And I was able to compete in a contest for speeches. Like, we had to write a speech, and I got chosen to compete in front of Les Brown. And there were things that I found about my mom's funeral that were funny, right? And believe me, it was a very devastating time in my life, but there's humor in everything. There really is. However, if nobody else is laughing, it is not humor. If somebody's hurting, it could be humor, but just remember, you may have to pay for that in some way, right?
All things considered, stay funny. Stay a little mean, just a little bit, just a little tiny bit, but use it wisely. Yes.
Oh, Lord. Anyway, this was a good one. This was really a good one. Yes. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you're watching it live. But if not, then please know we want you to subscribe, right, to our Facebook page, right, Working It Out TV show, our YouTube channel, and watch us on your television set. Like, watch us on the actual set. Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV, E360 TV. Watch the replays, but check us out on the big screen.
All right. We'll see you guys soon. And as y'all know, as we say, conflict is here to teach you something about yourselves. Go out there and find out what that is. We'll see you guys soon next week on Working It Out Across Generations.
Thanks for tuning in. And go make somebody laugh, like a whole room full of people.
And if one or two, just go check on them later. See you guys.